good. I got Valley Voice.
Wind in my lung.
See, last year we had some issues with this, for those who remember. And like I said, I got a degree in computer science, but if I could figure out the batteries of this thing, you know. All right, so first of all, thank you. Thank you one and all. Amazing day. We had the Ruck March a year ago, and we had about the same number step off from Faribault. And I was a little bit nervous this morning looking at it's about 7 o'clock, and we had some stragglers coming in, but we didn't have any, you know, it wasn't over 50. But then I remembered we had the group coming from Waseca, so obviously with two groups split, we didn't have the same amount leaving Faribault. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Obviously we all know the reasons we're here, to bring awareness to these tragic issues of suicide. With us today, we have many folks, all walks of life. We've got folks that have come out of the Twin Cities and beyond, and certainly southern Minnesota is represented pretty well here. But we will now move into the speaker portion of this. Hopefully you've all been able to get lunch. And for those of you that are in the bar area, we have about half the tables open here. So if you guys want to come in, you're more than welcome. You can bring your food and drink with you. Please come in to this room if you're able from the bar. So I'd like to thank the American Legion Post 149, the Honor Guard, the Color Guard being out on the street with us today to get us in. We've got a lot of volunteer support here in the kitchen. Thank all of you. Please, yes. And for the Legion hosting this event here, it wouldn't be the 3 Legion Ruck without the support staff and the members here at this Legion. So we're very extremely happy to have you guys help us out with this event. I'd also like to thank the Morristown Fire Rescue EMT units that are out on the street with us. Again, please. The significance of having their involvement, they try to underplay that and underestimate it, but this is all part of the whole program. This is exactly what we're trying to do, is build these support networks. So I don't want them to underestimate the power of what they have in this. It's, you know, without their support, we can't do all these things and commute safely from point A to point B. You know, obviously Faribault Police from that side, and I think Waseca, you guys had great support as well, right? So, yeah, awesome. So it's without their support, we can't do all these things to make these events pull off. Before I move into the main piece of this, I'm going to ask David Peters to please step forward wherever you are. And do not try to hide on me. Right here, my man. So, to make about a 3-hour story into 30 seconds, David Peters, along with Dan Borchers, who's here, and we have a couple others, Sam, obviously not here, but we have some others that are involved in this from the onset. So Operation 23-0 is a movement in terms of trying to get the word out on these issues, and they started this program, what's it, not even 2 years, a little less?
January 2015.
Okay, January 2015, so we're coming up on the 2-year period. Right, from the official standpoint in terms of name, but the support system has always been there in some regard. So officially, less than 2 years ago, they built this Operation 23-0 from the ground up and tried to help stem the suicide issue in terms of getting the awareness out and looking for prevention issues. I officially got involved with these guys a year ago, September, when I met them at an event that I was not even aware they were at. I was at a motorcycle event called it was actually Cruise for Troops, and it was held up at Forest Lake area at the Running Aces Casino. They had 400 motorcycles and 650 classic cars for a one-day cruise. And at the end of that event, when we got back, they had veteran service tables, they had veteran support groups there, they had a band playing, any number of things going on. And in the far back corner, next to some artillery pieces and an APC troop carrier or some such, they had this booth, this tent set up, and from a distance I seen this Operation 23-0 flag and this banner, and I seen all these boots laid out in front of this booth. So I walked over there, and it was pretty intriguing to see that. And when I walked up, I think Brian, wherever you're at, I met Brian first, and then we started to talk, and he introduced me to David. So that was a year ago, September. And since then, I've gotten a little bit more involved with these guys on any number of ruck marches and some different events that we've held here in the south, southern Minnesota. And we had the big event back in the spring where we talked, we had a night of discussion where David and I had some slide presentations to share, and then we had an open discussion. And that event, we'd never done it. We had about 30, 40 people there, and we probably had, 2 to 3 hours worth of open discussion. We could have gone all night, just based on the questions on what's going on with these issues. So David's been obviously very instrumental in this, and we kind of consider him our group leader, I guess, in many ways. But I'd just like David just to say a few words. I can't bring him all the way from Twin Cities and not have him say anything. So if you just say a few words, and then we'll move along from there. David Peters.
First of all, I'd like to. Do I have to use that? No. Use my man voice. Cool. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. It's always a good time. Last year I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. So a little bit about me. I'm still a drilling reservist in the Marine Corps, and that weekend was our drill weekend. And my CO said, "No, you need to come to drill." So fair enough. So other than that, you know, doing what we do, it doesn't matter. This military suicide, right? It crosses all boundaries, socioeconomic, race, gender. It doesn't matter. So everybody kind of, in general, has someone in their mind that they think about while we're doing the rucks. You know, for me, it was a Marine I deployed with, 2008, 2009. When we got home, she took her own life. It doesn't matter what, you know. It doesn't matter the factors. Suicide affects everyone, right? We look at it on the civilian side of things. It's a big deal, right? Military side of things, it's really underreported, and that's kind of one of the things. You know, I've never once claimed to be a smart person. The more awareness I can bring, can get people that are smarter than me thinking about it. Hey, more power. You know, I'm all about that. So, thanks for coming out and helping, you know, raise awareness down here in southern Minnesota. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to talk to any one of us. You know, Kirk, he's down here running Southern Minnesota chapter for me. One less thing I got to do, so I can focus on the cities. I got my hands full up there. You know, if any of you are up in the Northland, we've got the Northern chapter runs out of Duluth, Cloquet area. So they're doing events all the time. We're always looking for new ideas, fresh ideas, new ways to get a hold of people, get in contact with guys and girls, stuff like that. So, you know, we'll be here all day. Come hit us up and chat with us. Otherwise, again, thanks for coming out. This is fantastic. So thanks to Kirk and everybody else that put this on.
I do want to mention something that Deb Peterson brought up at the Legion in Faribault, and this will apply to those that didn't hear that message, but we have the St. Paul Vet Center. We've been trying desperately to get them to come out of the city and to get to the outlying regions in Minnesota where people who cannot get into the Twin Cities, because they offer a very broad wealth of resources to our veterans on many, many levels. And so for the better part of the last year, we've been trying to establish essentially a satellite office in Faribault where people can come there once a month, and we're going to try to grow that program if it becomes popular. I think I lost this. You still there? Nope. Not again. I'd like to try to use the microphone because we have a lot of people that are sitting out in there that need that. Do you have more batteries? Has established a satellite office in Faribault, and they're based out of Bethel Ridge, which is the church on the north end of town. So we have some flyer information here that we can pass out. But if you know veterans that need immediate assistance in terms of their VA benefits, counseling assistance, any number of things that involve the vets, we've got that established now. So you can come to Bethel Ridge on the third Friday of every month. But next weekend on the 19th, they're actually holding an open house. So you can, but that's all available. So we want to get that information out as well. We'll work on the microphone piece.
Say, Kirk,
Yes.
Deb said that if anybody, like, say from Wasika, would like this group to come down to their place, if you can make the open house, November 19th, right?
Yes.
Can explain what you need to do to get them to come down for one day or whatever, how to pre-plan. We're trying to make sure everybody gets help if they need it, no matter what the reason they need help.
Check.
Whether it be for VA benefits or other things. Go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, I think we're back online here, so everyone out in the, you guys good? Sweet. Deb Peterson has been very instrumental in getting that lined out with Bethel Ridge, so Deb, thank you so much for doing that. So, a lot of the reason that we're here, obviously we've discussed that. We've discussed that we have these families with us today who've been extremely deeply impacted by these issues. I hope that those that are sitting here in that capacity, I hope that you can look around this room and understand that you have a very, very broad support system around you in many, many ways. So you have to understand, although it might have been your family member that has gone through this, we would hope that you would understand that you have a support network around you that you can count on and come to us with any needs whatsoever. I would hope that you would understand that. So please, if you have anything that you require, whatever it might be, please reach out to anyone in this group and beyond, because we're all here for you to provide whatever amount of support you need. With that being said, I want to introduce a young man who I have met over the course of this last year, who's pretty much been through hell and back in a number of ways. And I asked him for a bio, and I had this information available, so I'm just going to do a short reading and then I'll introduce him. On June 14th of 2005, my life was changed forever. I saw the IED and I tasted the gunpowder. No one is sure if I jumped out or if I was blown from the het that I was riding in. And it doesn't really matter, I guess. When I landed, though, it was hard enough to crack both my clavicle and scapula bones, dislocate my shoulder along with breaking my hip all the way on the left side. I also broke 4 of my 5 bones in my foot. And by the way, did I mention that I was also on fire? I kind of remember getting up to see where my driver was and to make sure that he was all right. The extra rounds that I had on my IVA started to cook off, and somehow I managed to take that off. The KBR driver that was in the truck behind me had a cooler of ice that had melted, and he dumped it on me to put out the fire. And that's pretty much really all that I remember until middle of August. This happened on June 14th of 2005. I spent 3 months in Brooke Army Medical Center in Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Besides the breaks that I mentioned above, I also had second and third deep tissue burns to 31% of the left side of my body. They had to amputate the thumb and pinky on my left hand, and I'm also missing the majority of my outer ear and some of the nostril opening. I have pins and plates holding my hip together, which are permanent. The first thoughts that I remember having were that I have to get back to my unit. I have to get back to my soldiers that need me, and it's not fair to them, and I'm back in the States, leaving them behind. I should have seen that damn IED sooner. I had become complacent, and nothing was going to happen to me. Was I being punished? I had to get back to the way that I was. Somehow this was my fault. Then the guilt set in about what I had done to my family. I've totally screwed that up. Look at me. No, don't. I look hideous. How can I face my kids looking like this? They'll be embarrassed to be seen with me. What if they won't love me anymore? Speaking of love, my wife, oh my God, how can I expect her to stay with me? I'm not even a man anymore. She's not going to want to be intimate with a freak. What if I can't work, or how do I support myself and my family? I had nightmares and I couldn't sleep. I wasn't eating and I was losing weight, and I didn't really even care. If I didn't start eating, they were going to put the feeding tube back in. Who cares? I've already totally screwed up my life anyway. Many things have transpired since that. And in the end, he says that I found the more that I talked about these issues, the easier it was to deal with. People would still stare at me when they'd see me, but I hold my head high because I'm proud to be an American soldier. My kids are proud of me, and most of all, my wife is proud of me. No matter what I saw or what I did or what happened to me, I was an American soldier on a mission to protect the freedom of those who need it. Ladies and gentlemen, your American soldier, Mr. Mike Mills.
Change one thing that Kirk said in Faribault. He mentioned the Blue Star and the Gold Star. He failed to mention the Silver Star. The Silver Star is for us that were injured in combat. And nobody really knows about the Silver Star, so I just wanted to mention it because of its lack of knowledge to everybody. Like Kurt said, back in '05 I was injured, and it was equivalent to 500 pounds worth of explosives. And I was 9 foot from a 5 foot bump from when it exploded. And like I said, like the bio says, I've seen it. I tasted the gunpowder. I actually seen the wires come out of the ground. I called it in. They asked me to repeat it. I repeated it, and that's when this happened to me. I do have a new nose. As you can see, the nose isn't missing anymore. However, it's not my original nose. It's prosthetic, but it's created from skin up here. So through the miracles of plastic surgery, I look like I do today. But I also have PTSD. And I don't have suicide ideations. However, there's times I just want to give up. Park my truck on the highway. Leave my wallet in the truck. Leave my cell phone in the truck, leave the keys in there and walk away. And it takes all I can to fight that off. My surgeries and all take place in California. And I went there a couple years ago for just a little follow-up consult. And I flew out there. There's many hours of flying, many trees, and many hills that I can walk. I landed in California. I had it in my mind, I was going to send my stuff home. Send my bag home, send my keys home, my phone home, everything. And I was going to walk home. If I made it, I made it. If not, who cares? Then it dawned on me. The people that would care is my wife and kids. One thing that's not in my bio, I've been affected by suicide many times. A very dear friend of mine, a squad member of mine, someone else in my unit, just recently my brother-in-law. Non-military, but it's still the same, it still affects you the same way. So, you know, it's an ass kicker. And we think we're weak if we ask for help. Well, you know what? You're weak if you don't ask for help. Ask for the damn help. So how our loved ones or people around us know we're hurting unless we ask for the help? I communicate with obviously with my wife, but I can't verbally tell her things about how I'm feeling, so I'll send it in an email. I write an email. She's in the kitchen, I'm in the living room. I can easily get up and walk in there. I'll send her an email. When I wanted to walk away, I wrote it out on my iPad. I gave her my iPad. I went outside. Hour, 2 hours went by, she didn't come out. Don't she care about me? She couldn't. She was totally, she just shut down because she didn't know how to react to me because of what I was going through. We did talk about it, and I'm here today because of it. And I haven't given away to walk away. I haven't given in to walk away yet, and I refuse to. when I was injured, I had a 20% survival rate. I refused to give up. The military, their wisdom said I'll never walk again. I'm here. I'll never drive again. I drove from Texas back to Minnesota when I was injured, after I was injured. And I had to be dependent on my wife the rest of my life. And I'm not. I wasn't beforehand. Why would I want to be dependent on her now? But that's what the military kept saying. Anyone have any questions? I have no pain, so if that's one of the questions, I have no pain. When I was injured, when I was burned, it burned all my nerves on that side, so I have no nerves on that side. I don't know if anyone noticed, when we were standing outside, I was turning blue. Just half my face turns blue because of the lack of circulation through there. It's quite comical. First time it happened, we were at a football game, my kids and I. It was probably 50 degrees, rainy. We went inside at halftime, and I looked in the mirror, and half my face was blue. I'm like, guys, why didn't you tell me? Because, Dad, it was funny. So for the first couple of years after that, they locked me out of the house in the wintertime. To see how long it would take Dad to turn blue. And it got to be the point my wife would say, oh no, it's going to take Dad 5 minutes. Or my kids, oh, it's going to take Dad 10 minutes. I always had a key with me, so it's not a big deal, but that was their way of handling Dad, of his new looks. Because apparently they came down to Texas to visit me, and I don't remember none of it, but I wouldn't look at them. And I wouldn't even look in the mirror. I had therapy every day. They'd come to my room, put me in a wheelchair, wheel me out of the room. Every time I come by the mirror, I'd go like this, and they'd wheel me out. Come back in, I looked the opposite way. It was one of my therapists that noticed it. She stopped me in front of the mirror one day and turned me towards it. So I had to look at myself. That's when I realized how, excuse my language, how fucked up I was. And I really wasn't. But what I seen before that, what I seen, I was totally screwed up. And I withdrew, and my wife met a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, and said, can you go talk to Mike? Go talk to my husband. He would come in the room, Mike, why are you here? Check my effing records, I tell you I'm here. The next day, or maybe an hour later, I don't know. Mike, why are you here? Check my records, I tell you why I'm here. He finally made me realize one thing. It's not my fault. Was it my fault I was in Iraq? No. Was it my fault I was on that mission? No. Was it my fault I was in the hospital? No. And that's how I live my life today. It's not my fault. I could take this beer and dump in his lap. It ain't my fault the beer's sitting in there. I may get my butt kicked, but it's not my fault. And I tell myself that every day. Every day I brush my teeth, it's not my fault. And there's days I have to do it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. But I do it. I recently got pulled over. It's not my fault. It helps to have Purple Heart license plates. You don't get tickets, but I wouldn't recommend Purple Heart plates to everybody. And we also use humor, as you can tell. Because without humor, I would go insane. Before I had my nose fixed, my little nubbin here fit perfectly. And would be driving, and I'd get passed by cars. So I started doing this, put my thumb up my nose. It wasn't really up there, it was just it fit perfect. And you would see brake lights come on, with cars trying to stop and see a thumb up someone's nose. So humor, we use it. And like I said, if you know someone's struggling, sit down and talk to them. Or get them to someone that they will talk to. I've lost 6 military to suicide, but I've saved 5 from suicide. reach out. Have them reach out, or you reach out for them. My phone's with me 24 hours a day. And if you want my number, I can give it to everybody. I have no problem with giving my number out. Have them call me. If they want to sit in Faribault and have coffee, I left my house at 4:45 this morning. I'll be more than willing to drive down and have coffee with them. I don't care. I don't want to lose another brother or sister to this epidemic. Yes. One of you two, I don't care.
I was just gonna say, I think you look great.
Thank you. I do too. I was good looking when I went to Iraq. I'm better looking today. Yes.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
You said you deal with post-traumatic stress, but before you got any help for it, or I'm gonna struggle squeezing it out. Before you got help for the post-traumatic stress, even when you were in the early stages, right, dealing with it, what did you encourage yourself with so you wouldn't just walk away from everything?
That's when my wife got me introduced to that psychiatrist. That's what actually brought me around. I took the left turn. I admit it. I was going down the wrong road. I didn't care if I lived, really. I wasn't eating like that said. When I went to Iraq, I was 155 pounds. When I got out of the hospital, I was 115 because I didn't care. I wasn't eating. They had me on, I think it was like a 4,000 calorie diet a day. I had to eat that a day. I didn't because I didn't care. It was that psychiatrist that brought me around. That and my wife and kids. Yes, Dave.
For those that don't know, Mike, when he says that he will no shit drive, Mike is our support driver for probably 75 to 80% of our rucks. And he lives, how far north of St. Cloud?
I live a half hour from St. Cloud.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, like I said, I left my house at 4:45 this morning. I got here at 7:30. So, this is important to me. Veterans' lives are important to me. So,
Can you touch on Camp Bliss a little bit?
yes. I work for an organization that bought some land up north. We hold retreats for veterans. It's free for the veterans and their families. And we actually have one in December.
3rd through 5th.
Okay. I was just up there yesterday, I don't remember the dates, but, so yeah, if you know a veteran that, and family that, like I said, it's free for them. We do different, sessions. I've had a, acupressure person up there. Instead of the puncture, they did pressure. I've had pharmacists come in. I've had, well, David and Amanda came. So it's just different learning sessions throughout the whole thing. It's very relaxing up there. I think Dave fell asleep on the chair out by the lake, but yeah, it's open to any veteran, caregiver. Typically, we don't do kids because of what we've talked about, but the one in December, their kids are going to be welcome because it's a family retreat. So, if you want information on that, get a hold of me. I'll be more than happy to help you get signed up. Yes.
So for the ones that you talked about, the 5 that you've saved, where are they at in their progression, their lives in terms of receiving assistance, in terms of not benefits, but support network around them, and how are they handling it?
One got married and has 3 kids. And the other ones are they've done the PTSD treatment and they're surviving today. Yes?
Are you in correlation with Eagles Healing House there?
No. Nope. I'm only 12 miles from there, but I've never been, so, I should go look at it sometime, but I haven't.
That's one of my goals too, so.
Go and stop by Freeport and take me up and go together.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything else? Don't be afraid. Because I'm not afraid to talk about it, so. Thank you again. Doesn't work? Doesn't work?
And we're not hearing off there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
You gotta start over now.
I will if I have to. Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate it has to happen, but, and it's also unfortunate they don't reach out for the help. And it's not just, like Dave said, gender doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. My brother-in-law was 59 years old. I have a friend down in Texas, his daughter was 12, just recently. So it's from young to old. So have them get the help. Sit them down, talk to them. Without medication, I'd be screwed up, more than I am today. So, you know, not everybody does medication, but it helps. Thank you again.
Any other activities, like say outdoor activities or anything else to?
Am I?
Yeah.
Yes. I noticed one thing that helps me, not just one thing, but the outdoors, hunting and fishing, oh my God. I can't get enough of them. And I mean, I've taken a trip to South Africa on a hunt. That's how much I enjoy it now. Beforehand, I didn't hunt in 20 years. Well, 15 anyway, being in the woods. So, anything else? Does that answer your question? Yes, sir. I'm not a sir. I should make you flutter gigs.
I want to see that.
I want to see the kids run.
Mike Mills. So, Mike, I'd just like to elaborate on your point of emphasis of the ask for help piece, because that's really part of the whole code we're trying to crack here. We can't get them to ask for help, so that's where these interventions come into play, and we have to recognize these warning signs straight away. I mean, that's where we need to educate ourselves and become better citizens around these people that are struggling. You can't put it all on them. I mean, part of the reason that they're in this is because they are afraid to ask for help, but a lot of this is on us. So we need to recognize these signs and take action, appropriate action based on what we see happening. I had the great honor of meeting the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Robert Neller, at the American Psychiatric Association annual meeting this past May. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was there on official capacity with my work, and it just so happened one of the rooms that I was covering in terms of monitoring and recording the speakers, it just happened to be General Neller's room. So prior to him coming in, they'd come in and swept the room for security and all this, and I was privy to see some of the things going on behind the scenes when we were setting up our gear, and they come and checked everybody out, and it was a closed room assembly basically. And, but in so doing, I got to hear him speak, and one of the things that he keyed on was ask for help. He goes, we train our Marines to be tough and do the things that they're doing, and when they get put in these positions, oftentimes they come out of combat roles or whatever they might happen to be doing in their military career, but they've been trained to do these things and not ask for help in that regard, and work as a team unit in a team structure, but that sediment remains when they get out, so they keep that going. And it doesn't apply just to the Marine Corps, it can be anyone. But the point being, he basically told the APA, the psychiatrist there, he goes, I was standing at Camp Pendleton in front of a division of Marines, and I gave a speech on any number of things about readiness and where we're going next and what's happening in the Marine Corps and the United States military. And at the end, we had a QA session. And one of my young sergeants stood before me and he says, with all due respect, General Neller, I've been to Afghanistan twice and I've been to Iraq and I've seen some pretty horrific things and my guys have gotten killed. And when I've come home after these deployments, I'm seeing my guys kill themselves after reaching American soil. And it's extremely difficult for us as Marines and as us as combatants to understand that, because they're supposed to die in country, not in our own country. And with all due respect, General, he says, what are you doing as the Commandant of the Marine Corps to address the suicide issues? And the General pretty well laid it out, and he said I had to answer him with no certainty because although he was aware of the situation, he couldn't give that young Marine Sergeant any real answer that would be, in terms of him accepting that, he couldn't give him that answer he was looking for. But he said, I have the power and the resources in front of me to have people work on these issues, and I am doing that. And with your question, I'm going to redouble my efforts. And the General said, and that's why I'm standing in front of you, the American Psychiatric Association, full of doctors, because you guys have been dealing with these mental health issues for all these years. And I do not want to have to reinvent the wheel within the Marine Corps League. So he did what he had to do, and he's reaching outside the confines of the military and the Department of Defense to look for help. And that's where we need to be. We need to look outside of ourselves and what we might have available as resources. We need to be proactive and look at other avenues. Like I talked when we left the Legion this morning, reach outside of that inner circle of friends you have and meet new people. Don't be afraid to step on tender ground. Reach outside that immediate dynamic of what you have around you and find ways to help and approach and intervene. When we did the Boots event here the last 2 days at the Rice County Veterans Memorial, I had a young lady approach me and ask about intervention techniques in terms of how to approach someone that's struggling. And I think you and I talked about some of this on the way here. But in her case, she had to intervene with a young man that's struggling and it worked out. And I said, well, what approach did you use? She said, well, I was there and I just kind of talked about some things. I said, well, that's your approach. That might not work on the next individual. So they're all tailored, unique. But do whatever you do, but be there. And if you can't be there, then send 5 people in your place that can be there. But look for resources. Become educated. Go online. There's so much information. You just go to the Mayo website alone. There's so much information out there that you can find on these. Look for those warning signs. Look for ways to break through. Help those that are in need in any number of ways. Another instance, I was reading about some different suicides that had happened across the country. And yes, we all hope that we could be there and help somebody pull through, as Mike has in many instances. But I was reading another where, Dave, you and I have talked about this, and Dan, we've talked about, we do some things, we do events, and you walk out of there and you're feeling pretty positive, and then you go home and you're kind of riding that high, and then the next thing you know, there's another one that you hear about. And it's devastating, and it brings you right back down to square one. But it doesn't stop the mission. We still have to proceed in the terms of we've got to help those that are in need. And in this instance that I was reading this article, they had a young individual that was struggling, and they thought they had a good network of people around him to help him. So they invite him over, they're watching a football game, and in the middle of the game, he gets up and he walks in the bedroom and he shoots himself and kills himself. So how does that leave those that were there? What do? There's you can't control everything, but there are many things that are within your control, and that's where we're asking people to be proactive rather than reactive to after the fact. So there are no right or wrong answers. You got to look at each individual, and there are many more questions than you will ever have answers. But that doesn't stop our solution in terms of searching for solutions. That's where we're at. We're looking for ways. So one of the other methods that, or one of the other items that you talked about was the hunting and fishing aspect. In the Project 22 film, if you're not familiar with that, Project 22 followed 2 young combatants that both of them had attempted suicide, and by the miracle of God, they were brought together and they took a cross-country journey on motorcycles from San Francisco all the way to New York. 22-day ride. They just went across country on their bikes, and they met with veterans that are struggling. They knew they had trouble. They thought, what the hell, let's get on our bikes and go out there and talk to others that are struggling. So that's exactly what they did, and they filmed this, and they've turned it into a full-length documentary. And this has been shown up in the Northland here several times in the cities. And on November 14th, this is going to be playing. They're going to have it down in Rochester. So go online, search for Project 22, and if you can, by all means, please go down and see this film. You can also stream this on pbs.org. They have it online. You can stream it right off of there. But it's just little pieces of the puzzle like that to educate yourself and become aware of what's going on. But regarding the hunting and fishing point, what they're trying to emphasize in this film is find your passion. Find something that you either have never done before in your life, or find your passion in something that you love doing in your life, and stick with that and do those things and get more people around you to do those. But become something bigger than yourself in terms of getting out into the environment, or getting out into, if you like to read, get a book club going, any number of things. But the outdoors, I mean, obviously here in Minnesota we have a very unique opportunity compared to some other parts of the states here. So enjoy the time around you. Get out there, get with friends. You know, Dan and Scott, you guys, I seen you in a fishing boat last weekend. Amazing. I mean, just the pictures that I saw online. But it's those types of things. I mean, it just get out there and become involved and do these things and get others involved around you. Particularly if you know people are struggling, approach them and invite them. So we can't fix all of it, but we got things that are available to fix in front of us. And a lot of this is preventable, extremely preventable. So one of the other things that's been it's brand new, and it's something that I'm going to have him come up and talk about it. But another unique opportunity is this watch, and I'm going to let Tyler talk all about this. Patrick, did you want to speak first? Patrick, please come up. Patrick Skluzacek, let you introduce your son. If you remember, Patrick was here last year and he talked about this. I'll let you guys do an update. Patrick.
I'm Sergeant First Class Patrick Skluzacek. I'm retired for about 4 years now. I did my 22, and that was it. Anyhow, I want to give a little bit about myself. My whole family's always been military: dad, grandpa, great grandpa, and of course, come my senior year of high school, a week before my 18th birthday, we had a career week. Everybody coming in from every business out there in town. And anyhow, the recruiter, Staff Sergeant Walters, I'll never forget his name, come in there and talk to me and talk to me. So that sounds pretty good. I think I'm going to go in the military too. And it did. 18th birthday, I went and took the test, and I joined as a mechanic. Everything was real good. I always wanted to be a mechanic. Mechanic in the Army, mechanic in the civilian world. Did that for about 14 years in the military. Never worried about getting deployed because I really couldn't do my job in a sandbox. Army had a different idea. They thought, well, if they can fix a truck, they must be able to drive a truck. So they sent me down to a month-long 88 Mike school. Of course, I was a staff sergeant. And then they sent us right over to Iraq. Well, being I was a staff sergeant, now all of a sudden, well, because of your rank, you're going to be convoy commander. Well, a little difficult. I haven't even been on an official convoy yet, except for these little mock training ones we've done. And now I'm going to, you know, haul fuel tankers into Iraq, you know, into Fallujah and Ramadi. Every other day, one went to Ramadi, the other day to Fallujah. Not two nice towns over here. And for the whole 2 years leading up to this, the Army has taught me what if, always what if scenarios. Think of the worst, think of the worst. And I think that is one of my PTSD's biggest fear, is I think of the worst case scenario all the time. You know, my sons came in from Chicago. They said they were leaving. It was an hour and a half later. I'm already, what if they crashed? What if, you know, it's dark out, it's cold out. He hasn't been in Minnesota for a few months. And it's a hard part. They don't all think about your military service. They never thought or taught us, well, what if these guys bring us a case of beer out in the middle of the desert? No, that never was our training. It was like, what if this is going to blow up? What if this is going to blow up? What if this little kid that's coming up asking for candy is going to blow up? And it's even if you don't get blown up, your mind is still technically blowing up because you're sleeping. Mike, you're, I mean, that was my worst case scenario. I thought it every night. You know, the 7,000 gallon tank of fuel behind my truck, I wasn't so worried because the up armor is remarkable in 07 when I was over there. And they can take a pretty good shot, maybe not a 500 pounder, but it can take a pretty good size IED. But I was worried about what happens to that 7,000 gallons of diesel fuel that isn't up armored behind me and my truck's disabled. All that fuel scattered all over on fire, how easy is that to outrun 7,000 gallons of burning fuel? And it gets to you after. Well, I came home, and then it was my first sergeant's turn to take off. I became first sergeant in the Faribault Reserve Unit because of I was at E7 now, and I was the highest ranking guy there, so they had no choice but to make me first sergeant. And I started hearing around and around that everybody was having sleeping problems. But we didn't know what it was. We didn't have these marches back then. I mean, this is something that started in the last couple of years, but everybody is, well, I can't sleep. You go to the psychologist and say, well, you're drinking too much coffee, you're drinking too much beer, you're not, getting good sleep. Everything else is a reasoning why we're not getting sleep. And you wake up from these nightmares and you can't remember, so the psychologist was probably just a loud truck drove by. Every morning at 3 o'clock, and I actually talked to the cops, had them sit outside my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. Make sure somebody wasn't coming by with loud exhaust, scaring me away. And there wasn't anybody, and I still woke up. So it's not something that, there's something in us that is scaring us awake, and why we do it, I don't know. But my life drastically changed. I couldn't sleep. Because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't work. My work performance went way down. My boss held on to me probably 4 or 5 years, and after a while he just had enough. There's only so much you can do. I mean, you tried drinking, you tried trazodone, you tried everything, but some way or another, it works for about a month, and then all of a sudden, bam, you just can't sleep again. Or you wake up and you got to drink some more, you try taking more trazodone, and then you can't wake up. Your bosses don't like that either. And life got real hard. Lost my wife, my house, my job. I mean, granted, you go to the counseling at the VA, it starts to slowly come back together. But it's always marginal. Probably happened a year ago, I think today. My little watch got turned on, and Tyler really did a great job designing something. He's going to come up here and tell you all about it and the troubles he's having with corporate America and regulations, but he's doing a good job. The first week I had it on, I ate everything in the refrigerator. I didn't know why. My girlfriend is just about an hour in, not quite yet, but she says that's textbook. She works in a nursing home. People come out of surgery, they can't sleep. They can't, they're not hungry. If you don't burn the energy, your body's not going to want to replenish it. So I started sleeping throughout the night, and I started eating everything in the fridge. Sometimes, if I do wake up to go to the bathroom, I got to go to the fridge and have an early breakfast because I'm hungry. And I really didn't gain much weight, maybe 5-10 pounds, but I got so much more energy. I'm not afraid to stay, do a little overtime at work now, stay up a little later, and don't worry, it works good, and it tracks it. It's not 100%, but it's a lot better. You can go a night or two without it, just like everybody out there has had a bad dream, whether you have PTSD or not. You can live through it. The problem where PTSD and night terrors is a problem is when you go a month or 2 or 7 years without a good night's sleep. Then you get worn out to nothing. It's just like your alternator in your car. If your alternator goes out, your battery will only keep you alive for so long. If you don't get that battery charged up, you're kaput after a while. And it's been working real good for me. And it just counted like 25,000 steps from Faribault to here. So it's quite an amazing thing. But anyhow, that's enough about me. That's really about a great invention from my son. I flew him in from Chicago. He's in a PhD program there, and let you talk a little more about it. But Tyler?
Hi everyone. I'll keep it short because I also spoke last year, and of course, of everyone in this room, given that yesterday was Veterans Day, I feel I'm one of the least qualified people in this room to be up here speaking to you. So thank you to all of you who have served, and to all of you who have dealt with people who have served as well. I'll hold it closer. Can you hear me now? A little better? Got it. I'll hold it like a rapper. So yeah, about a year, I'll give the quick recap and I'll tell you where I'm at now. So about a year ago today, I flew out to a hackathon in Washington, D.C., where the theme of the competition was to help create a mobile solution for post-traumatic stress disorder. Normally you don't fly across the country to go to a hackathon, you go to one near you, but there's nothing like that in Minnesota, so I decided to just drain my little savings account, fly out there to try to do something for a good cause, namely like my dad. And so I did that, we created the application, and it went very well for a while. I spoke here last year. Exactly 1 year ago today, our Kickstarter was successful. We raised $26,000 to create it. Little did we know how quickly that would go to lawyers, protecting red tape, VA. We needed about $120,000, so we were about $100,000 short. But it's still going well. My dad is using it right now. But a little bit what happened is we went to, it's still happening, it's just a little slower. So we went to the VA in North Carolina where they said they would fund an entire study for us free of charge. And so months went by, months turned into 6 months, turned into almost a year. And so we finally got to the point where, okay, we're gonna finally put this on people, we've deemed it safe. So we need this medical study to release it to everybody. And they had the nerve to tell me, okay, now if you give us $30,000 after I zero, we'll do this for you. And so it was a little disheartening, but we didn't stop. I went to the University of Chicago, in Chicago, where there's a lot of support for creating big ideas. So I took my application there, and we have a new partner outside of the VA system. I know this week we had there's something big happened on Tuesday where we decided how we want the future of our country to go. And so hopefully something happens with that. I don't know. The VA will become a little more, because I can't blame any one person in the VA. Every single person working in the VA is doing fantastic work. It's just the fact that one person has to often do the job of what should be like 5 or 6 people. Not enough people, not enough resources. And so right now we have a new university partner, not military affiliated. It's going swimmingly. It's just a little behind schedule, but hopefully it should be able to help a lot of people. I realized I didn't actually say what the application was, for those of you who didn't know last year, or who weren't here last year. So it's not actually a watch, it's just an app that you put on any factory smartwatch that tracks your biometric signals while you're sleeping. It can sense within a pretty small margin of error if you're having a traumatic nightmare, what your thresholds are for making it stop. So we have a way to intervene and stop a traumatic nightmare to keep you asleep, which has proven in our preliminary testing to actually improve outcomes during the day, give people more energy, decrease symptoms of depression. So as you know, low sleep leads to high depression, which leads to worse sleep, and so it's like this vicious cycle. And so the application is working well. Of course, we have our #1 guinea pig, my dad. And a lot of people have worn it until we got a nice little letter from the FDA that said, take it down and test it, or we will end you and put you in an orange jumpsuit. So yeah, a lot of red tape, but I'm learning a lot. It's still coming. It's just behind schedule. So thank you all for listening.
So at this time, I'd just like to open it up to the floor. If we have anyone in here that would like to say a message or share a story, whatever it might be, regarding these issues, anyone at all, I'd just like to open it up to the complete floor. Otherwise, well, I'm going to encourage you, otherwise I got to talk for another hour. Okay, so with that, yeah, Bill. So this is Bill Shanks. He's out of the cities. Bill, I'll let him tell a little more, but Bill, United States Air Force veteran, and Bill's a great friend. I can't even tell you how great, but Bill, speak, please.
It's an honor to be here and be a part of this. Long story short, I set this up, make it much quicker because I don't want to take up much of time. I served in the United States Air Force from July 28, 1982 to, I was medically retired 28 September 1989, and because of time's sake, and then I'll cut to it, just simply what I want to share from my heart to all of yours, that as a Cold War veteran, I'm a non-combat veteran. Anyhow, the Ramstein Air Show disaster, 28 August 1988, and cutting all the gross stuff out. I was an EMT, and I was one of many that worked on all the wounded when 3 Italian jets collided. One tumbled through the crowd. Again, that was 28 August 1988. Fast forward, because of time, just I was married once before, but here's all I'm getting at. Thanks for patience. I'm gonna take my eyes out of my speech because I never struggle. Thanks for patience, y'all. That these 2 specific things. First, as encouragement to all fellow veterans in here, whenever you served, if you're dealing with post-traumatic stress, if you keep that in mind, there's one thing. And 2, and some further motivation for all of us, me included. And y'all ever say anything, probably never do this where you say it and it comes out backwards. First, I'd rather end on the whole part. The further motivation for all of us, here it is, and please hear this so I don't tap dance. When they retired me 28 September 1989, you can't notice it, I don't exaggerate. Literally in the natural realm, everything's gone. I had 4 things left. My wife and 3 sons. And please hear this, and then I'll cut to it. I didn't just up and attempt suicide right away. I warriored on. I'm just skipping over a whole bunch of stuff. So be it, I wasn't given any help yet. And anyhow, because of time, because the clock shows nobody mercy. Remember, like I said, and I repeat again, I warriored on, but to cut to it finally, caught myself to doctors tap dancing. So like what I said, right? I only had my wife and 3 kids left. Well, 7 weeks after the medical retirement, she's like, "It's too much, man. We're done. We're getting separated." That night, so 3 days before Thanksgiving, 1989. That night, I took 200 pills. And fast forward here. Here's a long story short. 40 minutes later, I flatlined 1 minute. I was dead, no heartbeat, no breathing. And you see why this wasn't easy to say. That further motivation to all of us. Right, so that was November 1989. Here, approximately 5 years ago, I was with my father, and hopefully I don't lose it. We were at the funeral it was my mother. It was her maid of honor. Her son committed suicide. And The only thing that didn't make clear, and thanks so much, please. When I said I had 3 sons, it was spared. You know, you see where that's going, right? Because I was literally resurrected from the dead. I'm sitting at that funeral, and I looked in the eyes of this 12-year-old girl, his daughter, and I saw written all over her face, wondering, man, why did my dad kill himself? Did I do it? I'll leave it at that. I think at the end that came out clear. So there's further motivation for all of us to do everything that I can't say anything better between Kirk and David, you know, that, right, while we're all here, to keep reaching out. Actually, if I may, let me slow down. I love what Kirk said before we left, before we stepped out of the Legion. He said, press the issue. You know, if you see loved ones, whoever is struggling, press the issue, bring it up. And on a different note, this will be much quicker. As encouragement to all my fellow veterans, and also to the spouses out there. Please hear this. I'm just being, I just want to give credit with here, excuse me, the good feeling any of us can take, and here it is. I stand before you. I was an experiment. I was the first non-combat veteran to go through Topeka, Kansas. I got down there 4th of December, 1991. Commenced out of there, that was when it was 90 days at Topeka, Kansas, VA. Commenced out of there the 3rd of March, 1992. I'm so dark and complicated. Here's the hope to all the fellow veterans and your spouses and your loved ones. 27 years I've been a survivor of post-traumatic stress. Please hear this, and thanks to my bride, my wife, we've been married 21 years. And I'll leave it at this. I hope we get to talk to you later. And I'm not great with words, and just thanks for much praise one more time. You know, don't ever give up, fellow veterans, and please believe in someone's done. You know, when I asked that question, I'm just being honest. It was more on behalf. I thought maybe if it helps just one person, if it'll motivate them to not give up, and if you haven't gotten help, to go seek help. Because I'm just one of many. 27 years I've been a survivor, and it is lastly, you know. I went through a second inpatient PTSD treatment. That was the end of August, in a 45-day program at Hot Springs, South Dakota. So I hope it came out clear at the end. Please I plead with you, don't give up. Reach out for help. And you know, please don't think out loud. It is last year. You know, and here's Doc, me keeping life simple. I can keep it few words. Okay, I'm just keeping it real. When I was 19 years old, so 5 years before that trauma, Doc, I'm kind of kid a little bit. But in 27 years, I stand with so severe speech, I can never get nothing out for 2 years. All I'm trying to say is, men, please hear this. You know, excuse me. Don't come on with it. When I was sitting at the tables at an AA meeting at 19 years old, here it is, this is all I was getting at. I realized at 19 years old, man, please hear this, it's not a slam to our fathers or our grandfathers. Just that the tape, what I was told, put it this way, you know what all and most of us were told growing up, man, suck it up, take it like a man, boys don't cry. That's a lie, man. Here's simple, I leave you with this. I'm just being honest, but bold in God, not myself. The only little bit I know, God gave us these tear duct glands. Let them tears out, reach out for help.
So, we've come a long way. Not just the journey today, but this past year we've talked about these connections that are being made and these support networks that are being built. And so all of you are now empowered to move to the next level. A lot of you carried either on your pack or on your back or in your pocket these names that we handed out at the beginning. So I would encourage you and ask you to research on those names and learn about those individuals. Learn about these families that are struggling with the loss of that individual that you carried with you today. If you have an unfamiliar name, do the research. Find out who they were, who they are, who their families are, where and how things are going for those families now and the friends that have been affected by that. empower yourself and do the research, because we're not going to solve these issues without help, and that's where you all come into play. When I was planning the final program for the boots event that we just concluded yesterday in Faribault at the Rice County Veterans Memorial, on Wednesday night, I was going through my checklist of items thinking that I'd forgotten stuff, and I shared this with some of you along the way here today, but when I was going through my final list of things that I wanted to do, I knew that at the bottom of every hour we were going to be placing those boots. And I wanted to do a final salute, and I also wanted to include a final prayer. So in so doing, I searched through the chaplain's American Legion book that I have, and I did a couple of quick searches online, but I couldn't find anything readily that was befitting for that occasion. So I reached out to Bill, and I know Bill has been blessed by the grace of God to be able to continue his life and to come here and have the courage to speak with us today. And the story you have shared with us should resonate on the fact that Bill is a survivor, and he continues to push forward through the hand of God and through this network of people that he has now come into over this past year. So he is an absolute living proof positive that the system that we are building is working, and that we can't give up, and that we need to continue this process. So when I asked Bill, knowing his deep commitment to God, for a prayer, I simply told him what I wanted to do with the boots. I wanted to set them down. I wanted to do a reading, and then I wanted to do the final salute. So Bill said, I don't have anything immediate, but I will fervently pray to God tonight, and I will provide you with what you are requesting no later than mid-morning. And this is all on Facebook, which I just am brand new to, as Peter can attest to. So through the use of social media, I just messaged him and told him what I needed, and he messaged back and said, I'll get to you tomorrow. I said, that'll be fine, perfect. So I didn't give it another thought. I knew he would pull through. And so I went to bed, and when I got up that following morning, I noticed that there was a message that had come through from him at 2:04 a.m. And so he didn't even wait till the next morning to do this. So I looked at what he had sent, and it was absolutely spot on perfect. And it read exactly for what we were needing for the occasion. That was Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. So I sent a thank you, and I wrote it down on a card, and I was going to use that for the event. And so for 23 straight hours, we stood watch at the Rice County Veterans Memorial. In the bottom of every hour, we set out a pair of boots. And in so doing, I read the prayer, and we did a final salute, and then we watched the clock tick because we knew someone else was struggling. So the way that we had set this up is on the Rice County Veterans Memorial. There's a main plaza. If you haven't been there, there's a main center plaza. So each hour on the bottom of every hour, because we chose the bottom of the hour to represent the bottom of where that individual is with their life. You can't go any further lower. If you're committing suicide, you're at the end point. So the significance of placing those boots at the bottom of every hour played out extremely difficult as the night progressed. So before we'd set them up, we walked in, and we arrived at the memorial at noon on Thursday. And as we were walking in, I noticed this gal coming across the plaza, walking into the memorial, and she had a bucket, and it had roses in it, and I just thought she was passing through. And she approached us, and she come right up to me, and she says, I know what you guys are about to do here, and with these roses, I would appreciate if you could take one rose and place with the set of boots when you set them on the ground at the bottom of each hour. So I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. I almost lost it there. And she just said, my family has been extremely impacted by this, and if you could just do this for me and for all those that are lost. And I said, by all means, we will absolutely take these roses and we'll place one on every set of boots that we lay tonight, 23 sets of boots. So I didn't think anything more of it. She left and she worked, unbelievably, she worked right across the street at the Fairway that we just walked past this morning. And she works in the bakery there, and like I said, I didn't give it much more thought after that because we were still trying to get organized, and I totally was in awe that she would offer that up, and it just completed that part of the program. So we got to the bottom of the first hour there, and we set the first pair of boots, and one of the gals that she had to depart, she had some other things going on. She walked with us from Faribault here today. She went over and selected a rose for the first set, and we set that down, and I had noticed on the roses themselves, they were in the bucket, but they were also wrapped in plastic, and on the plastic there was a card, and I just seen that there were some words. It was printed, or not printed, but typed out, and I noticed from afar that one of them was basically the color of this iridescent green hat, but it was in highlighter. There was one message there in highlight, and you know, it kind of piqued my interest. So after the first setting of the boots, I walked over there, and I went to pick up the bucket and read, or that group of flowers, and when I picked it up, she had typed out on basically a 4x4 sheet of paper, or it was cut out, and on that cut out piece, the message, or the part that was highlighted, there were only 3 lines that were highlighted out of a group of 30, right in the center of that card, and the message, or that text, was Matthew 11:28 and 29. The same verse that Bill gave me. The same exact verse. And I completely lost it. That was the beginning of this 3-day event that we've been on now, this journey for the past 3 days. That was the beginning. So if you're not a believer and you don't understand divine intervention, this is the description of divine intervention. There are many ways. We've all dealt with a number of things over the course of our lives. But to have that happen at that time, to kick off that program and that project, that mission, was amazing. No words can describe what I saw when I read that message. So Bill gave me this prayer, and Bill explained to me in no uncertain terms that he did pray after I messaged him to have that prayer come to him. He said, I will fervently pray, is the way he described it. I will pray to God to bring this message to me, whatever it might be. So when he described to me in person how that process happened, and I'll go through that step. So what he did is, when we got off the line that night, he did pray, and there were any number of scriptures that were coming to him. And he said he had gone to bed, and he woke up around the 1 o'clock hour, and he described that when he awoke, he was having all these different readings going through his mind, but there was one that kept repeating itself. And it was Matthew 11:28, 29, and with 30, is essentially. And he said that was the one that kept repeating itself. That's the one that God kept telling him for our mission. That was the message. So he typed that out and sent that to me at 2:04 a.m. that next morning. So for that, Bill, I don't have any words to describe thank you. Thank you is not enough for that. But this obviously has greater consequences, and the significance of that was not lost upon me as we went through the course of that evening, and each set of boots became more, the difficulty of that process became more excruciating, because I could look up on where we had the boots staged, pre-staged, and then we would bring them from up on the hill to the plaza, and we started setting them in a circle fashion. And so as that number began to grow and the clock began, continued to tick, it became inherently obvious that action speaks much louder than words. So that's where I'm asking you for a call to action. We can talk about these issues all day long. It does us no good. action is what we have to do. So that's what I'm requesting of all of you, is to take action in no uncertain terms. You must. It has to be done. Otherwise, we'll never get through this process. We cannot wait a moment longer for those that are struggling. So you have to do something. I understand that we all have different priorities. I have a full-time job, a part-time job, and an 11-year-old at home. We all have priorities. But you have to have something within your daily schedule that exists for the purpose of something greater than yourself. And this is a cause like no other we've seen in this country, essentially, with the high rate of suicide. We have to stem this. We have to reach critical mass. We have to reach out. We have to take action. So, along with the prayer, Bill also sent me a pre-message, and I read this for every single one, and Tim, and that was there with me through a lot of that, and any number of you folks that stopped by. It was an amazing experience, and one that I feel that we really can move to another level with what we saw. So Barry was there, we had Jeremiah and his crew, any number of folks stopped by. But we read this every single time. May every American citizen stop in the business of their day to honor the lives of these fallen brave souls that each pair of these boots represent. The reading from Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest to your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So look up Matthew 11. Look up online ways you can assist. Look up Operation 23-0. Look up Project 22. Look up 22 Kill. All of it. Go online. I mean, all of this information is available at our fingertips. There's no excuse. We can't become better researchers, better servants, better at any number of ways we can help. All of this exists out there, but you have to change up your priority system if you're not already doing these things. I understand that there's Vikings football on Sunday. I totally understand. Well, I use that loosely, right? I understand that there are events going on that take us away from the heart, essentially. They're distractions. We can talk about reality TV. We can talk about what's going on behind the walls of California. We can talk all day long about all these other distractions. But in the end, all we have are these family structures that are being shattered by these issues. And if we can't help assist in some manner, as a veteran, I take it personally that these things are happening. As an American Legion and VFW member, I take it extremely personally that these things are happening. We have the ability to work together as a unit, and you've seen what's going on out here in the street today. Amazing. I mean, the road to get here, this is what it's about. We can watch football all day long, but you cannot replace that with what we experience here today. And you come around the corner and we're heading south and you got the southern group coming in. I mean, as soon as we see these guys, I mean, how do you explain the feeling you have when you see that group coming in to converge on this town? Or how do you explain the volunteers that have been here for countless hours just preparation for this? Those things you cannot explain with a football game. So I'm just asking you, you don't have to dislike those things, but find some time where you can start to energize yourself and get involved in these other things that really, truly matter. So I thank all of you for being here today. I mean, without this process, without your participation, we cannot reach a broader audience. So now it's up to you to leave here and take the next steps, take action. The families that are sitting in here right now that have experienced this firsthand are counting on us to help in some small measure. The families that where this is about to happen have no idea. We need to be there for them. Thank you.